Hello, everyone. My name is Edward John Zawatsky III, and I'd like to thank you for having me at the Virtual Hour Conference. Now, today, if you notice, I'm using a different format that we're used to using. Instead of doing Google narration, I'm using screencasts. It is a helpful, handy tool that we're using at Purdue University today, but unfortunately, I only get a one-shot go at using this method. So if I stumble or fall along the way, please be patient with me. I'm just trying to exercise the different tools that Purdue is using today. And notice behind me, I'm actually using my brother's streaming space because he is a e-gamer, an e-athlete gamer, so I'm using this space to accommodate to the situations that we're going to be talking about today with our true color assessment created by yours truly, Edward John Watsky III. So what is action research? Specifically, I'm going to fly by this because, again, I only have a 10-minute or so time limit. So all action research is an alternative to EdTPA assessment in place at Purdue University. AR provides a more flexible approach to benefit future or active teachers, test a hypothesis in a more applicable way and other applicable methods to utilize in their classroom. The process is done through a similar format such as the scientific method. The scientific method specifically, we have a hypothesis, we want to test it. Why not test it in the classroom right here and now? So the big question for my hypothesis is what is considered an adequate way of assessing students? Both students and teachers share the same combative opinion about how we should test students, either through presentations or standardized quizzes. Now, you can pause the video at any point and take a look at these quotations because, again, I have a lack of time to go into more in depth with that. But what I'm going to focus on down here specifically is the commonality between the opposing views. Specifically, the commonality between student and teacher is everyone's individual strengths should be adequately analyzed in order to give a more appropriate score for any assessment. Specifically, students, they want students, what a student has said in the past was they want every student that has a unique strength and ability, then they should be allowed to express that personality and ability. As well as for teacher perspective, in a day and age where we need to acknowledge student feeling, we need to hear them out, we need to give them feedback, we need to be able to use that strength and listen to that strength, because without doing that, we kind of fail as teachers to A, acknowledge it, and B, do they truly walk away learning something if they're not using their combative strengths? So how do we do this? We integrate the True Color assessment. True Colors is a simple, user-friendly personality assessment and communication questionnaire to stimulate professional and personal development. It is most effective specifically for a personality assessment tool to supporting organizational understanding, specifically for scientific, practical, but what I like to focus on right here is it promotes inclusion that bridges the gap in communication, leading to respect, understanding, and compassion, which opens the door for successful relationships, either internally or externally, to ultimately affect the climate that someone is learning in. These are just the different traits and characteristics that we're learning from this: communication, learning, value, strengths, the needs, also the stressors within students specifically, what triggers them, what to do and what not to do as a teacher, the workplace compatibility, self-esteem, introversion and extroversion, and most importantly, the diversity of how students learn. The True Color questionnaire, and this is where I'm going to exit this out. And we're going to come over here to the word sort. This is the questionnaire. And we're going to come over here. It's similar to the questionnaire methodology of the DISC test because I'm a student athlete at Purdue University. We had to do the DISC test. That is another personality test to see how an individual works to get the best outcome out of them, as well as Sean Covey's fruit salad test, the novel that was from the novel of the 7 Habits of Highly Effective Teens. All this is sort of based from the True Color assessment, specifically basing off of 4 colors. Over here in the survey, each and every student had to complete one of these surveys to decipher, okay, am I active, opportunistic, or spontaneous? If that sounds like you would put a 4. If it does not sound like you put a 1. Everything else in between, okay, the next, personally for me, parental, traditional, responsible, that's the next best option. So I would put a 3, 2, and 1, and so forth. Same thing restarts for the second row, 4, 3, 2, 1, 4, 3, 2, 1, so on and so forth. All that will total up to our answers down here. How much are you in orange? How much are you a gold? How much you are a blue? And how much you are a green? You're probably wondering what do those colors represent? Those colors represent specifically how we act as individuals. So prime example down here, framing greens themselves maybe see themselves as powerful, creative, rational, calm, not emotional, but sometimes the backside or the negative effect is that some people might think that they're arrogant or ruthless or unrealistic or things like that. So it's just becoming aware of how each and every student identifies themselves, how they are identified as other people from time to time, especially in negative situations, and how we recognize that as teachers and work with that. So again, gold is another one. Orange, which that is my personal trait. I scored a 20 for gold, so I am occasionally I'm spontaneous, flexible, practical, problem solver, good negotiator, so I can woo people. But these are my negatives from time to time. And it is important that we recognize the positives about these individuals as well as the negatives in order to handle different classroom situations. And then finally, we have the blues, I believe, all the way down at the bottom. And again, you can pause the video to take a look and read each and every one of these. So now we are going to come back over, start from current slide, to the research plan. I have students do the true color evaluation. So my sample size was 60 students, 3 class periods, period 4, 5, and 7, all regular 8th grade language arts students. Girls, I have a total of 29. Boys, I have a total of 31. Granted, in this case, gender really does not matter. It's about the learner, the individual, how they learn. So from here on out, I'm not going to refer to anyone else's gender. I'm going to refer to their colors specifically. Determine all the individuals' identities between the classes I have. Here are the identities that we have. Again, you can pause the video, take a look at that. Every 2 weeks, assess the student and on the content we are learning. So the first cycle will be a student's choice. They get to pick either to choose a quiz or the presentation that will be graded and the data will be recorded. The second week, they will have to do the opposite. So for example, if they chose a quiz the first week, the next 2 weeks after that, they need to do the presentation option in order to get a wholesome and congruent data. After that is completed, students will be surveyed on the experience of how they felt about the procedure. The specifications in terms of this is we're going to be using checkpoint quizzes. And this is just the information. Again, you can pause and read it. The checkpoint quizzes are, the content that we're going to be covering is over the diary of Anne Frank, specifically the play version. Students will technically never know what will be on the checkpoint quiz, but we will tell them when the checkpoint quiz will occur. So every time we gave an assessment, we told them when it was going to happen, but we never told them what material was actually going to be on it. The reason for choosing the quiz option is to stimulate the Common Core curriculum, which that's what we use specifically at my school. And finally, the reasons for choosing the speech presentation is because that high public speaking element that a lot of career paths would like out of their future applicants. So again, we chose the quiz route because of this Common Core standard that is constantly being used, or that children face during the SATs or ACTs. And finally, using that presentation aspect, such as doing a public speaking assignment, is that we want them to get comfortable speaking in front of people, not just with their peers. Quizzes, 10 questions ranging from multiple choice and free response. The content on the unit is 1 point per question, half credit, 0 if no credit. We have located down below 15 minutes in complete silence. Questions were crafted with me and my mentor teacher. The presentation gets a little tricky. It's a 2-minute speech from a random selected prompt. Prompts are questions from the quiz itself. It's just reworded to fit a speech format. Students pick a number from 1 to 10 to choose their random topic, not knowing what they have. They have 13 minutes to work in silence while the students are working in quietly taking their quizzes, and then 2 minutes to present. Once all of the quizzes have been collected, the presenters will present. Once the student finishes the quiz, their presenter will go ahead and perform. The guidelines, and this is a big key takeaway, the guidelines were reviewed as well as taught in previous lessons before leading up to doing first round data collection. We did not throw them into the deep end and try to let them swim to see, oh, how is this going to work? We went over lesson by lesson by lesson over what is a attention getter, what are talking points, what are closers, what is good eye contact, what is good tone, and knowing how much time you're working with specifically to affect their grades. We went over that. We prepped them for it. We just didn't say, all right, let's do it. We prepared them adequately. So they had the free choice of picking whatever they feel benefits them personally, the quizzes or the presentations. Some example questions specifically, I'm going to escape this, is that we're going to close that out. Here are some example questions. Specifically quiz related. Nazi regime known for their brutality. What was that team known as? Obviously the Green Police. One essay prompt question that was randomly selected was this question specifically. Do you see Anne as a static or dynamic character, and explain? So how the presentation people would go about selecting their prompt was, I'd say pick a number between 1 to 10. They would say a student would select 8, so that would be their new prompt. Clearly this prompt was omitted and was replaced with another question created by my mentor teacher. So referring back to the first assessment data, not a lot of people chose the presentation option. We had, out of the quizzes and presentation total, we didn't really have a lot. Out of the 60 students surveyed, I believe 18 students actually picked the presentation option. That's not a bad thing. That just means there's going to be a lot of presentations in the second half of data collecting. But here are our results. And I thought personally the oranges would have a high average of doing the quizzes and to succeed in it. Actually, high averages in the presentations, I should say. I'm so sorry, I spoke out of term. But right here, out of 7 people, technically the people that did the quizzes did an 8.4 as their average test score. But everybody else in the category did better based on their personality assessment. And I would assume oranges, they would love to do presentations, but unfortunately, because their personality traits are flaky and other things like that, maybe they didn't know what they were talking about. But the golds are more organized, well prepared, of course they're going to score better. So basically, how do these character assessments shape the outcome of the estimation? The only red herring or outlier here is actually in this category for my 5th hour class, which was a lot of them did better on the quizzes than the presentations, which was fine. We're not analyzing which is better, presentation versus quiz. We're just offering that you need to give more diversity in the terms of assessment to support the needs of all these different character traits within your classes. Why is this? Why did we see this number skewed? Is because maybe perspective, maybe a lot of people thought that the quizzes were easier over doing a presentation, which is harder. Systematically, quizzes are the social norm, and personality type, it's uncharacteristic for a student to do a quiz or a presentation based on what they like to do. And the knowledge, do I specifically know how to give a speech? Do I feel confident in giving a speech? Obviously, COVID-19 happened. So what would I have done next? I couldn't get the second round of data. So what I would have done next was get the second round of data and then use the results to compare to the first results. And then the survey questions I would have asked are these right here below. Now I've overstepped my time limit as of right now, but we have what is your true color, why did you choose the first assessment that you did, which method did you feel more comfortable with, and finally, what could have been done differently with both assessments, or even right here, which method did you think was harder? All these questions are essential in order to determine and continue the research. Now I've overstepped my time, but I'd like to thank each and every one of you for the opportunity to be here, and hopefully I can expand upon this view in the future. Thank you so much.